Oh my. So, as a Canadian, I don't pay a lot of attention to South America by comparison to what the US does because it's in their backyard. And so, whenever I think of places like Venezuela, I think of them as just as far as places like the EU. It's probably wrong. We're on the same continent, and Venezuela does affect us. It affects our oil prices, apparently, and imports and exports that I haven't done any research for, so I can't speak to. And I've been asking some people to tell me. Let's realize we're wearing our gaming glasses, not our regular glasses. I've been asking for people to give me the skinny on it, and they said watch this video, watch that video, and I watched a couple videos, but most of it's posturing about like how good of a operation it was that the US pulled off and just how tough the US looks. And I don't disagree with any of that stuff, but like I'm looking for facts. I'm pretending like I'm asking for like almost like an ELI5. Like I don't need to hear how powerful and strong America is. I'm very aware, and I've benefited by being a neighbor of theirs from their strength. And that's fine. But just I want to know why America did what it did. What's the outcome? What's the reason for it? What's the financial gain for America to take Nicolas Maduro out of Venezuela? What they need to do afterwards? Will it have any effect on Canada? And I was told that Ben Shapiro's video, which we'll watch some of, he's a fast talking guy who does a lot of history, and he's very well learned, and he hopefully will spout some facts and not just no offense, but I watched the Michael Knowles video, and it was just basically him trying to be funny. And that's fine if that's what you're looking for, but I was looking more for facts. So let's take a look here and see.
Well, yesterday, Nicolas Maduro, the erstwhile dictator of Venezuela, who, of course, was extradited by the United States in a snatch and grab operation, shocking in its magnitude and competence, appeared in U.S. court for the very first time. Again, unthinkable 1 week ago, and yet here we now are. According to the Wall Street Journal, he pled guilty to narco-trafficking charges during his arraignment in federal court. He said, "I am innocent. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man. I'm still the president of my country." Well, all of those things are not true. He is, in fact, guilty. He is, in fact, not a decent man. He's responsible for the deaths of probably hundreds of thousands of his own compatriots, the exile of millions. "I'm still the president of my country." He really is not. He adds that he was a prisoner of war and had been...
The one video I watched was one of those videos of a bunch of people from Venezuela living in the States telling other virtual signalers in the States that are so blinded by the hatred for Trump that they haven't looked into the details of whether or not this is better for Venezuela. And it was just people in Venezuela saying, look, we've been waiting like 26 years. Our kids have a meal a day. They go to school hungry. We've been in a dictatorship. It's awful. Please stop telling us what's best for us. You don't actually know. And I find that a little bit liberating to hear, because I'm a little tired. I'm just a little tired of people speaking out of turn and saying they know what's best for other people, like completely out of their diaspora. Like, I'm a white Canadian dude who's lived here my whole life. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's best for anyone outside of maybe the Maritimes in Canada, because that's where I grew up, and a little bit of Alberta, because that's where I am now, and I've been looking into the place. But like outside of that, who can I speak for? I can say like, oh, I just read or watched such and such, and it's kind of sad, and I hope that's not happening to people. But full informed decisions don't come by watching like one video. That said, hopefully Ben gives me some information.
Kidnapped from his home in Caracas. According to the Wall Street Journal, Monday's hearing kicked off a legal battle with little precedent over a foreign leader in U.S. court. The arrest of a head of state presents challenges for both the prosecutors and the defense, and it could be years before this thing goes to trial. The judge interjected and told him that there would be a time and place to make the argument that he was wrongfully apprehended. His wife sat at the same defense table. Apparently, there were some signs of injury sustained during her capture. And again, the charges include cocaine importation conspiracy and possession of machine guns. They're being detained at a Brooklyn federal jail, apparently to the great consternation of New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
Well, that makes sense because Mamdani and Trump don't get along, but Trump lives there. So, okay, so now I know. I mean, I had a feeling it was about the drugs because I remember watching those videos of the boats being exploded from Venezuela. So what? He just kept sending more, and Trump said, "This is enough. If you don't stop sending boats, we'll come and get you." I also read that Maduro was kind of expecting something like this, like a move of some kind from the U.S. So there must have been some kind of discourse between the two.
Who really should be happier about all this after all? We just provided an illegal immigrant, Venezuelan drug dealer with free housing in New York. So he really should be quite happy about all of this. The next hearing is set for March 17th. Meanwhile, what is going on over in Venezuela? Well, yes. You have the vice president of Venezuela, a woman named Delcy Rodriguez, who is by all accounts just as vicious, brutal, and Machiavellian as Nicolas Maduro.
So is she in power now? Because if that's the case, then maybe she's okay. We'll see.
Has been left in charge. Her brother is the head of the Venezuelan Assembly, which of course is a puppet group, a puppet legislature. The question is whether the United States will be able to exert enough pressure on Delcy Rodriguez to get what we want, namely a reopening of the oil industry in Venezuela, a transition, you would hope, to some sort of actual democratic order that ends the socialist tyranny.
So it's about the drugs and the guns and the terrorists and the gang members coming into the U.S., but it's also about the oil industry right next door. Okay.
That has dominated Venezuela. You would assume that the reason the United States did not just topple the regime outright is because we do not want tons of boots on the ground in Venezuela, and that external pressure will force Delcy Rodriguez to essentially give up the ghost at an unspecified time in the future. It'll have to be fairly short order, obviously, because President Trump only has 3 years left in office, and I do not trust a Democratic successor or possibly a Republican successor to do the right thing here. According to the Wall Street Journal, Maduro's top lieutenant...
Not a lot of presidents have been making these kind of aggressive moves. So I guess if you really want to follow this plan all the way through, then you got to do it before you leave office. 3 years, eh? It's going to be an interesting 3 years to follow up on this.
Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as the country's acting president on Monday. Small groups of armed civilians known as colectivos, paramilitary units in support of the ousted president, sped around Caracas on motorbikes. His loyalists are still very much in power. Rodriguez immediately declared a state of external commotion, authorizing police to search for and arrest anyone who supported the raid by U.S. commandos who snatched Maduro and his wife. Now, the question is whether some of this is for show, whether she's attempting to demonstrate that she really is a continuation of Maduro's regime while really sort of doing the bidding of the Americans, saying outrageous things, doing outrageous things, simply to keep her loyalists in line while actually doing the work of the United States. According to the Wall Street Journal, Maduro hardliners in the legislature, including his own son, whose name is Nicolasito, took part in a ceremony on Monday to swear in the National Assembly for a term that is supposed to last all the way until 2031. Apparently, armed men were performing spot checks in the Capitol on Monday, stopping drivers to check their vehicles, forcing people to unlock their cell phones for suspect messages. At least 7 journalists were detained. 3 of them were released. 4 of them remain apparently under arrest. Apparently, many residents didn't believe they could go out into the streets. One banking advisor in Caracas said there's no change at all. We're going to remain in the same situation because it's the same people. So the question, of course, is what comes next? Stephen Miller, special advisor to the president of the United States, he says, listen, we are setting the terms and conditions here no matter what the Venezuelan government is currently saying.
We are in charge because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission.
And their oil production's gone down significantly, even though they have the biggest stores. And a lot of it is being used to funnel money to the dictator and his friends, if I'm not mistaken. This is something that I read as an aside, so let's see if that's discussed. And that would make sense then if the U.S. is going in there saying, look, you could be making a lot more oil and it could be benefiting North America, not just this dictator and his cronies. Let's see how true that is.
For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission. So the United States is in charge. The United States is running the country during this transition period.
If that's true,
obviously that doesn't mean that President Trump is setting the bus fare schedule inside the country.
Okay, so the question is what that means. How much pressure can we actually exert? How much leverage can we exert on the Venezuelan government to do the things that we want to see done in Venezuela, meaning an actual change of regime? Because let's be clear here, the goal here is not merely to get Delcy Rodriguez to open up the oil industry. No one is going to invest in a country in which the dictator can simply revert back to type the minute that President Trump is out of office.
Right.
This has been one of the major problems when it comes to investment in Latin and South America by major corporations. If you've got a 10-year runway, for example, to get to the oil that you need, then how are you going to invest 10 years worth knowing that at any moment Delcy Rodriguez could change her mind and simply nationalize the oil industry again when President Trump is out of office? And so there has to be real effectuated change with serious commitment and the ability to carry out what needs to happen. So who are the major players here? Again, according to the Wall Street Journal, Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello and Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino command Venezuela's police and military. Those are the forces that kept Maduro in power for more than a decade, with their deadly crackdowns on dissent, and probably tens of thousands of people were imprisoned or killed by this regime.
And before Maduro, another dictator was involved too, so there were no elections down there for like 26, 27 years. Can you imagine you're like 25 years old and you've lived under that regime? No election, no control over your government. Kids eating one meal a day in school, going hungry. Yeah. And Venezuela is really gold rich too, right? Like it's got the resources. They're just being exploited not for the gain of the general populace. I hope that changes. It's not the same. It is not the same. But Canada has ridiculous resources that are not being used for Canada as well. And our economy is tanking, and it's one of the worst in the G7. I did another video about it recently if you want to check it out. Very recently, I think, 1 or 2 videos ago. So I get that frustration at the very least. I'm not going hungry. I don't have a yet socialist dictator as a leader. Thank God.
And so you are talking about the functional military apparatus of Venezuela, which typically a dictator will ensure is loyal to him. Something happened here that made clear that they were no longer loyal to Maduro, and they were hoping that Trump would take his foot off the gas. If Trump keeps his foot on the gas, and I mean that almost literally, if the United States continues to inhibit the flow of oil in and out of Venezuela, to prevent exports, to control the airspace, it's going to make it very difficult for the Venezuelan regime to continue to buck President Trump's demand.
If U.S. gets their hand on Venezuelan oil, doesn't that make things difficult for the oil industry in Canada? Huh. I wonder.
Right now, Cabello and Padrino are displaying unity with Rodriguez, but they represent a wild...
We don't do a very good job of getting our oil sold to the U.S., and we should have for a while, so it's probably even our fault.
Card for President Trump's bet that the remnants of the regime will fall in line to avoid Maduro's fate. For now, Cabello and Padrino appear to be playing ball after that large-scale strike that took out Maduro's personal security apparatus and led to his capture. So if the regime falls, then both of them are in serious trouble. They might find themselves in jail. You could see a world in which they end up having to go into exile. They also may not have a hell of a lot of choice because, again, the United States demonstrated its full-scale dominance militarily over whatever the Venezuelan military thinks it is doing. In a moment, we'll get to President Trump's demands for Venezuela's new government. First, as we move into 2026, many businesses, including Daily Wire, are ramping up hiring efforts to meet ambitious new objectives. But
I sincerely hope the hiring starts ramping up because previous to the holidays, all of North America seemed like they were on a hiring freeze, and almost every job posting out there seemed like a ghost posting. People were getting posted left, right, and ghosted left, right, and center. I've been reading a lot of people complaining about the job market, and that's something else we'll talk at another video soon, though. There's a scam going around in Canada too, where they're posting fake posts where you get like entry level jobs for like 70K a year, like stuff that would normally pay like 40K, and then they're not giving the job away, and they're using that inability to hire someone to enter a big scam that includes government funding and everything. It's brutal. We'll get to that later. Let's get back to this.
Bringing those goals to life requires assembling the right team, and that's easier said than done.
I'm gonna listen.
Today's hiring landscape
to his
presents unique obstacles
from
sourcing candidates with niche
Skip
expertise
ahead
to
if you don't
sifting
want
through
to listen to
overwhelming
it.
numbers of applications to find the truly qualified prospects. For companies facing these hurdles, our sponsor ZipRecruiter offers a solution designed to streamline that entire hiring process. Right now,
About a minute.
you can explore what ZipRecruiter has to offer at no cost by visiting ziprecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter's matching technology really cuts through the typical hiring headaches. As soon as you post a role, you can see exactly how many qualified candidates are in your area. No guessing, no waiting around. Their resume database lets you go straight to top candidates and access their contact info immediately, and that saves both time and money. It's no surprise they're the #1 rated hiring site on G2. When you're running a company, you need tools that actually deliver results. That's what ZipRecruiter does. Let ZipRecruiter help you find the best people for all your roles. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter will get a quality candidate within day one. See for yourself. Just go to this exclusive web address right now and try ZipRecruiter for free.
Their data is good.
ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Again,
it's all about how your quality of data when you're selling that kind of stuff.
So what exactly are the demands?
Yes.
According to Politico, the Trump administration is demanding that Venezuela's interim leader take several pro-U.S. actions her predecessor refused if she wants to avoid also finding herself in court in the United States. Officials have told Delcy Rodriguez they want to see at least 3 moves from her. 1, cracking down on drug flows.
Yep.
2, kicking out Iranian, Cuban, and other operatives of countries or networks hostile to Washington. And 3.
I thought I read that, but I didn't want to make a comment on it. So Venezuela was keeping itself open to some enemies of the U.S. That's got to be a big reason for the push. Like, you're right next door. You're just south, and you're letting in some enemies from overseas. Like, how long had that been going on for? I know Cuba used to do that back in the day.
Stopping the sale of oil to U.S. adversaries, according to a U.S. official familiar with the situation and a person familiar with the administration's internal discussions.
So they can't sell the oil to like Russia, China, and Iran anymore.
Officials also expect Rodriguez to eventually facilitate free elections and step aside, but the deadlines for those demands are fluid, and U.S. officials stress there are no elections imminent. This, by the way, is not a personal thing. There are a lot of members of the media right now who are trying to suggest that the reason that President Trump is not putting in place the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, Machado, that the reason for that is because he has some sort of personal animus that she won the Nobel Peace Prize. That's really, really silly. That is not what's going on. The actual thing that is happening is that she has no ability to govern because she does not have forces on the ground. Maria Corina Machado.
Oh, okay.
If she were in charge of military or something, then there would be the ability to put her in place. But if you just say she's in charge now, there's no way to actually effectuate that absent serious boots on the ground.
And that would put a serious target on her head, too. Like, that wouldn't be very safe for her.
This is why when Representative Maria Salazar says that Machado should leave the country, when there's an election, she should. The problem right now is, how do you make that happen? How do you get from point A to point B? Here was Maria Salazar making the case for Machado.
Marco Rubio said it. It's been 48 hours. Let's give us a few months until we create the stability. And I'm sure that Maria Corina Machado, who is the leader of the opposition, of the Democratic opposition, will go back in, be able to put together the process so you can have free and fair elections with international observers. I'm sure she will be the nominee that Maduro did not allow her to be, yes, the presidential nominee. I'm sure she's going to win.
Now, again, the question of how we get to an election is the big question here. According to the Wall Street Journal, the CIA had concluded that Machado would not have the ability to actually effectuate a shift in power in Venezuela at this time. She doesn't have the support base, not among the people, but with the actual people who have the guns. And it turns out that the people who have the guns typically make the rules. According to an intelligence report cited by the Wall Street Journal, it said that Rodriguez and 2 other top Venezuelan regime figures would be possible interim rulers who could keep order. The 2 hardliners, again, who we've mentioned, that'd be Cabello and Padrino, could undo any efforts at a transition. Both face U.S. criminal charges similar to those filed against Maduro. They're seen as unlikely to cooperate with Washington, but they may be a little bit more likely now that, their boss got defenestrated and brought to the United States for trial.
Or they could just run. Well, I mean, even now, I think we'll still keep going for a little bit longer and see how much more I can learn. But in the 12 minutes that I've watched so far, I've learned a lot. That it's not just about the drugs and drug cartel and guns. I did hear it's also about gang members and criminals just coming into the U.S. on top of that. But I guess that goes hand in hand with the drug cartel. I also heard that Maduro would not have won an election if he hadn't interfered in it. And so a lot of people don't see him as the leader, and they've been waiting, 10 plus years for him to be gone, and they felt the same way about the person before him. So I definitely did not know how much the oil mattered, and I guess it does. I'd like to know more facts. I think Ben did another video on this earlier. I think I'm not looking at the first one, so I may have to go back and take a look at that as well later, but let's keep going for a few more minutes, see what else we can learn.
According to the Wall Street Journal last year, the CIA cultivated a source within Maduro's inner circle who provided information on his whereabouts. The spy agency's close tracking of Maduro's location, which leveraged other surveillance elements, including stealth drones, allowed the Army's Delta Force to nab him and his wife during the raid, people familiar with the operation said.
I've heard that basically Delta Force makes the Marines look like unorganized. Like Delta Force is the actual gung-ho Rangers of American strike teams. I can only think of Chuck Norris in his Delta Force days, where he's like the one hand off to the side, shooting an Uzi and killing like 47 people while you spray and praying. Oh, good old Chuck.
So, what exactly is going to happen next? Well, the better course is likely to compel Rodriguez to initiate a transition of power. Presumably, economic discontent, identifying people maybe even lower down on the military infrastructure ladder, who have now been elevated thanks to the moves against Maduro, might be a way to effectuate almost a second coup. But the threat is out there and it exists very clearly. Now, this may not be the end of the story. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, he says that given the fact that Venezuelan oil was propping up the Cuban regime, Cuba may be next.
You just wait for Cuba.
Yeah, it's going to talk about Cuba, and then we're going on to Colombia. Let's listen to the oil bit just a little bit.
To reopen the Venezuelan oil industry in a productive way that is direct against the machine. Meanwhile, again, one of the big purposes here for the United States is to reopen the Venezuelan oil industry in a productive way that is directed toward the West and mostly directed away from Iran and China, cutting out the legs from underneath the oil support base for our geopolitical opponents. Right now, China gets an enormous percentage of its oil from Russia and Iran, but it also gets a not insignificant percentage from Venezuela. And so if China were to be deprived of that, that would do China pretty significant damage. By the way, Chinese weapons were on the ground in Venezuela. They didn't do much of a difference against the United States military.
Oh, wow.
Right now, Chevron is trying to figure out whether or not to invest serious dollars in the Venezuelan oil industry. Energy stocks jumped yesterday on the assumption that the United States would not have taken Maduro if it did not have a plan for a transition to a privatized oil industry in Venezuela. According to the New York Times.
I mean, I just hope that the Venezuelan people highly benefit from this. If they now have access to their natural resources and they can sell it to places like the richest neighbor that they have, and there's no corruption and dictatorial structure, then yeah, some real jobs, some real food, some real money, some stability.
President Trump has now allowed Chevron to continue operating in Venezuela. The company is in prime position to benefit after U.S. forces captured Maduro over the weekend. That remarkable turnaround is due in part to a spirited lobbying effort that included several conversations over the past year between President Trump and Mike Wirth, Chevron's mild-mannered chief executive. So Chevron stayed active in the Venezuelan area, and now they look like they are the company most likely to benefit from a reopening of Venezuelan private oil drilling. For Chevron, the rationale for staying in Venezuela was simple, apparently. Under a new contract in 2006, the company received an ownership stake in a key Venezuelan project rather than being paid a fee to produce oil there. Chevron apparently saw that if oil prices rose in the future, then they were taking the upside. So Chevron is still there. Chevron may benefit from all of this. Listen, cheaper energy, a Venezuela that is not directed at support of China or is barred from support of China is a win for the United States. Does that get us everywhere that we'd like to see Venezuela go? No. But there will be, I would assume, a transitional plan here towards something better for Venezuelans, even if it is not in the immediate term. And of course, what President Trump is attempting to do is to effectuate the will of the American people, to serve the interests of the American people without getting involved in a large-scale occupation of Venezuela. Meanwhile, the DHS Assistant Secretary, Tricia McLaughlin, she's saying that Venezuelans who are here on temporary protected status can now go home because Maduro isn't in charge. Well, I mean, we may be a little bit away from that.
Yeah.
Given the fact that, again, the regime...
It's like everyone's looking for their social media moment. Whoever said that didn't think it through. Just hold on, man.
Still in power is still Maduro's regime. It's all of his remnants.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is it for this video. There was possibility that he did another one on the oil. I wanted to hear more about the facts of the... Okay, where was it? We just watched this. I think it was down here, actually. Maybe that's the one that I've seen bits and pieces of before my wife was watching.
Series of mixed...
The Year of Clarity.
And here for you at Daily Wire. It's more than we have ever done before by a very, very long shot. But I want to start this year by talking about some big predictions for 2026. 2026 is the year of clarity. All the veils are going to fall. People...
I think this is the one someone told me to react to, because this one also gave a lot of facts about how the operation was done.
People are going to show you who they are. Now, that can be scary. Sometimes it's difficult to deal with the realities of life, the realities of people you once trusted showing themselves to be something else. It can also be surprising and heartening because sometimes people show themselves to be a lot better than you thought they were. But this year, events in the United States and the world more broadly are going to unmask nearly everyone.
It's my dog.
Why? Well, because I think we are on the precipice of something pretty big. And when big things happen, when the world becomes more chaotic, people reveal themselves. Adversity reveals character. And we're about to experience some adversity as Americans. Where will that adversity come from? Well, it could come from the international sphere. Adversity may spring from China's authority.
So where can the issues come from? It's not just Venezuela. These are all the things that could fall apart this year in 2026 for the U.S. This is the video I was told about, right? The Year of Clarity, Trump deposes Maduro, and international reactions. Okay, I'll probably just listen to this Year of Clarity because it seems interesting. We'll stop there.
Terran ambitions against Taiwan, or its global desire to expand power bases from Africa to Latin America. Already, we've seen some politicians and commentators shying away from revealing the realities about China, fearful that doing so could undercut their delusional vision of a world in which America in retreat is somehow good rather than harmful.
Isolationism.
Adversity could arise from the continued conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Or
I don't know. I kind of get that feeling because like 10, 20 years ago, Canadians just wanted to be left alone and everyone to leave us alone. I guess we still kind of feel that way. We just aren't in a state where leaving us alone will put us in a good place. We need to fix some things. But America's different, man. America's the police of our globe right now. It's the most powerful government for a reason. It's got the biggest army, and its job should be to keep its continent safe as possible and other continents healthy and good relationships with it. But I don't know. I'm not a politics guy at all. I've just started getting into listening to what's going on in the world the last year or so because I have a son and I care about his future. I finally care about something outside of my own sphere, and it makes you pay more attention to what's going on.
Or from Russia's growing ambitions in the region and globally. Many figures are already revealing themselves in their views of Russia, often evidencing shocking blindness toward what Russia is, what Russia wants, up to an...
I've been reading about there's a advertising campaign saying that Russia is the only true place to go for traditional values, and people that are fed up with non-traditional values and just want to be left alone and foster those traditional values for their family or whatever purpose are going to Russia to try to live there and being shocked at the state of what it's like living there. Yeah. I took a lot of world history in university in my second degree, and I didn't spend a lot of time on Russian culture, politics, corruption, but I spent a lot of time on their literature and the stark bleakness of their literature and the very different kind of Russian horror. And it was just, it made me realize that there's just something going on over there that's so alien to my world as a Canadian that I just wouldn't understand it without running that experience over a lifetime.
Including full-scale propagandizing on behalf of a tyrannical regime steeped in hatred of the values of the United States. Adversity could come from Iran's continued pursuit of nuclear weapons and international terrorism, or its desperate desire to...
Well, that's why they took out that nuclear facility in Iran, right?
Stave off internal regime change, or from its propaganda arms in Qatar and elsewhere pushing anti-Western, anti-American bull. Many politicians and commentators are already showing themselves willing to do anything and everything on behalf of such regimes, up to...
There's a ton of theories that some influencers that are pro Qatar, etc., are getting like money from over there to just sort of upset the apple cart, as they say. Do you want to upset the apple cart? My mom sells apples. What's that from? That's such a good movie. I'm sorry, I digress.
And including flying cover for radical Islam. Adversity might emanate from chaos in our southern hemisphere, where rogue states like Venezuela were pursuing deeper relations with our enemies until President Trump acted, as we'll get to in a moment.
I mean, that adds up then. That checks out.
Or from Europe, where unchecked immigration, combined with regulatory overreach, threatens to doom an entire continent to stagnation and disarray. Could come from any other variety of sources.
I feel like Canada's somewhere between US and the UK when it comes to the state of our government and our society after keeping our borders a little too open.
On the foreign front, the world is
not a little too. Gosh, I'm trying to be so polite and careful. It's not a little too. It's not like, yeah, anyway.
Chaotic place. It's a more chaotic place when America is weak, as many on the left and the right wish to make her. Adversity will arise domestically too. Adversity may come in the form of economic turmoil. While the economy right now appears to be in pretty good shape, nobody knows how the current AI investment cycle will play out in the short term, and economic turmoil.
Something we're all nervous about, let's be honest. Unless you're already rich right now, you are nervous about what AI is going to do. Yeah.
Brings with it political vultures. Already, we've seen some conservatives turning away from defensive free markets in favor of statism that seems more familiar from the left. And we've seen leftists embracing the most extreme versions of wealth seizure and collectivist centralization. Adversity will certainly originate in the size and scope of our massive and bureaucratic...
So much to digress. That's a lot going on. So people are just going to extremes on both ends. I really not sat down and watched a lot of Ben Shapiro's stuff before, but I like the way he writes at the very least, or his team writes, or he speaks. I'm not really sure, but I'm getting a lot of information, and he's stirring a lot of thought in me, as opposed to other people that are just sort of sensationalizing what's going on for clicks, trying to be funny. I remember watching my parents watch the news at night, and it was all about how like informative and quick and factual and deadpan it was, and then it turned into whatever the hell it is now in the mainstream media. So I get why people are looking for more factual output, and that's why I keep thinking about that Ground News. I'm not affiliated, look at me in the small channel, but Ground News, because they show how both sides of the political spectrum cover the same story, and I think that idea sounds super interesting if it works. I'm just not willing to spend money right now.
Government, which provides extraordinary obstacles to American achievement and overwhelming support to people who are willing to steal from their fellow Americans. Adversity will certainly come too in the form of reactionary posturing. Lies told by the left will be mirrored in lies told by the right, and vice versa, resulting in a continued spiral of conspiratorial...
I wonder if his lies on the right is he's talking about all that crazy Candace Owens stuff that's going on right now. Yeah. That's a subject I don't even know if I want to dive into, just because so many of my friends are, and they just keep coming back to me and telling me how much of a nutter she's. They say she's become, but apparently, she's always been, and just is revealing it to the world right now.
Polarization, totally disconnected from the actual lives of most Americans. Already, we've seen cynical politicians and morally corrupt commentators spew untruths in pursuit of algorithmic momentum.
Yeah.
And that is definitely going to accelerate this year. Politicians and commentators reveal themselves in how they react to adversity. So, do they react by telling you the truth, no matter how much their audience might dislike it? Or do they lie to you by telling you the things they think you want to hear? Do they react?
I feel like that's the easy road at the beginning, but then it always falls apart at the end. So hopefully more of the truth, please.
Out of principle or out of convenience? Do they recommend coalitional solidarity at the expense of basic decency and integrity and truth? In other words, do they treat you like a sucker or do they treat you like a citizen? Of course, it's an election year, and that means that we're going to be swamped by lies and prevarications.
I don't know too much about American politics, but I thought Trump had 3 more years. So I don't know what that means.
A lot of politicians who promise the moon and deliver nothing will be swamped too by commentators who suggest that political failure results generally from a lack of Nietzschean will rather than the complicated give and take of normal day-to-day politics, and who say that if you get more outraged, conspiratorial, and angry, somehow our politics will improve.
Yeah.
How will we, Americans, react to that adversity, that onslaught of cultivated resentment and Machiavellian manipulation? The American Republic.
Cultivated resentment and Machiavellian.
That adversity, that onslaught of cultivated resentment and Machiavellian manipulation. The American Republic is founded, on the one hand, in a fundamental supposition that human beings are capable of discernment, of acting morally when faced with adversity, of preferring truth to comforting falsehood, of recognizing our own fallibility. And the American Republic is founded, on the other hand, on the reality of human nature's darker side, our tribalism, our venality, our selfishness, all of which, when put together, is why our founders preferred a republic of checks and balances rather than a Francoist dictatorship or a pure democracy. It's why James Madison wrote in Federalist 51, quote, "Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The interest of the man must be connected with the constitutional rights of the place. It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary.
Would be needed, yeah.
In framing a government, which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. So, in the end, it's up to us. We have to become better at discernment. We have to act with humility. We, the American people, must discern who is telling us the truth, even when we don't want to hear it, and who is lying to us out of audience capture or political expediency or sycophancy. We have to work to preserve the checks and balances of our system, even checks and balances that might seem to deprive us of temporary power. If we don't, we risk an authoritarian centralization that turns against basic freedom. What's more, we risk an arrogance about our own nature that surely turns to disaster, even if our side seems to have that temporary upper hand. Most of all, we have to remember this. People who promise utopia, an end to adversity, an end to the chaos and turmoil of life, so long as you give them your trust and your power, are providing you a Faustian bargain in which you receive neither utopia nor freedom.
Yeah.
Those who tell you that your future is not in your hands and who encourage you to surrender whatever is left of that future to a demoralizing conspiracism, those people are lying to you, and they are lying to you for their own gain. And you deserve better than that, and we all deserve better than that. So, let 2026 be a year of clarity.
I love the way he writes. That makes so much sense. I wanted to stop, and I had a million thoughts along the way about each individual sentence and just the philosophy of it and how well written it was. And I felt like I would be rude to stop it. Wow. Yeah. So just like do your homework, people. Be discerned. Please continue, Ben.
Let people reveal themselves for who they are and believe them when they show you. And may we all approach the adversities of whatever comes our way with the courage, conviction, and decency that make America truly great.
And
we'll
decency.
get to everything that just went down in Venezuela in a moment. First, this episode is sponsored by Pure Talk. If your credit card balance is stressing...
Okay. I don't want to end on his ad, so let's go right to...
Goodness, the president of the United States has begun
only because I'm running short on time. I watched the first of his ads from the other video.
2026 with a bang.
Okay, we already watched this, or at least he already went over the deposition. So I think that's it for now. Yeah, I mean, my goal was to come in and learn a little bit about what happened and to get a better, more informed idea of the reason for the extraction mission. And clearly, he's a criminal because of the drug stuff and the mafioso cartel stuff that comes with it. And that gives them power to take him out and stop him from doing what he's doing. But also, if he's going to help, I'm a Canadian, not an American. If the Americans are going to help the Venezuelan people, they have to benefit as well. I really hope that's how it turns out. That's what I want to see. And hey, bipartisan gas prices will lower in Canada for a little while. So, wow, that was pretty good. I don't have a lot of experience watching Shapiro, but so far it's pretty positive. Well done.